Sunday, October 8th, 2017, was a beautiful day in Northern California wine country. Blue skies and warm temperatures offered no warning for what was about to happen. Later that evening and into the next morning, a series of massive wildfires spread rapidly throughout the area, fueled by drought conditions and 80-mile-an-hour winds. The flames jumped a 6-lane freeway and 2 frontage roads, bearing down with a vengeance on the city of Santa Rosa, home to NALC Branch 183.
We looked up and we saw this orange glow, and we were surrounded by a wall of fire all throughout the county.
Just within a matter of hours, thousands of structures burned, thousands of people evacuated, lives lost, over 40 lives lost. It was an incredible disaster and tragedy.
The morning of the fire, we started getting random reports about carriers and postal employees who had been affected.
We had 13 letter carriers who lost their homes, but many who were evacuated.
And after you heard the name, your stomach dropped again. Oh, they lost their house, you know. Somebody else lost their house. A clerk lost their house. A retired carrier lost their house. And it was just constant.
Wow. It's like a bomb exploded, and it's like you were in a war zone. It was like you were there and somebody dropped this bomb and everything was gone.
Letter carrier Robin Betts has delivered mail in Santa Rosa for 12 years.
So all of this was mine, all of these streets, all of Hopper, 293 houses on my route, and there's 18 left.
Robin and her family were evacuated from their home, but were able to return after several weeks. Most of her customers weren't that lucky.
So this is what is known in Santa Rosa as Coffee Park, and it's a neighborhood that was residential with single-family dwellings. And in October, a fire swept through from our mountains and came and caught this neighborhood on fire. Once it got off the mountains and came here, it was just jumping house to house to house to house, and barely anything was saved.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Thank you so much for bringing the mail
Oh, you're so welcome.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well.
On this day, Robin met up with letter carrier Ed Curzon on what had been her route. Ed had lived in his Coffee Park home for 29 years. He and his wife raised their 2 children here. As was the case for thousands of people in this community, his home was completely destroyed.
This is my home, 1505 Hopper in Santa Rosa. And on October 8th, in the early morning, the firestorm started, and it just devastated this whole neighborhood. So this is the cleaned up version. We smelled smoke as soon as we woke up and looked outside, and it was pretty much raining fire. Big orange embers were falling from the sky. 10 minutes after I woke up, houses across the street were in full flames. So it happened very quick. We had about 2 minutes to get out of the house. So think of everything in 2 minutes that you'd want to take from your home, and that's pretty much what we took. We got the dogs and each other, and a pillow and a blanket, and our cell phones, our IDs, and that's about as much time as we had to get out. I made the mistake of coming back 48 hours later because I didn't know, and it was just surreal to see everything. It was pretty devastating to see your home in that situation. They're saying that it could have reached up to 2,000 degrees. So everything was pretty much incinerated. The Boy Scouts had made sifters, and I went to where the curio cabinet was, and I was able to retrieve my dad's World War II medals. So that meant a lot to get those back.
You had a home one day, and the next day you're trying to figure out what you're going to do. And it was pretty intense.
There was a lot of tears, a lot of hugging going on. Mainly, we were sorry for their loss of their house, but we were more grateful that they made it out alive.
Of the 13 letter carriers who lost their homes, there were some who lost their routes as well. Such was the case for letter carrier Tony Prado.
Yeah, all of this on the right-hand side was all mounted boxes. They were kind of like duplexes. And yeah, they're all gone. Right here, coming up on the corner, there was a place called Willie's. It was a bar. It was like an old bar, real popular. But that's all burned down too. I lost probably 90% of the route. I took that harder driving through that neighborhood than I did driving through mine, because these are people that I've known and delivered to for 12, 13 years.
Not only do you lose homes on your route, you lose your customers. And I mean, just the people who got burned out are gone, and you may never see them again. That's also really emotional for a lot of us who have been on a route for a long time.
They're not just people, you know, they're friends. You know, to drive through that and see that they lost everything was I think, a little harder on me than it was in my own neighborhood.
Tony had lived in his Coffee Park home for 18 years. It had contained countless mementos of his children's early years.
It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It's a nice little home, you know, it's enough for my kids and myself to get along.
The high winds made it impossible to fight the fire. Tony stood and watched as the fire destroyed his home. There was no way to save it.
By the time I was leaving the street, there was already 3 or 4 houses that were engulfed in flames. There was embers falling, there was smoke everywhere. You're almost in shock to the point where it's one of those experiences where like you're there, but you're not, you know? And I could feel myself going into shock because of my essentially getting numb. And so I basically had to tell myself, you know, Tony, you need to get it together right now. Just focus on what needs to happen. Leave the emotion, leave the awe out of it, and just focus on what you need to do. I mean, to see it on TV is one thing, but to actually be in it is another. I came by the next morning, and essentially this is what the house and the neighborhood looked like. It just kind of makes you sad, you know. I know the stuff can be replaced, but there's stuff in there, especially the things that I kept that really meant something, were the things that my kids would make for me, you know, when they were in school. And those are the things that I think I miss most. Those are things that you just can't replace.
In all, the Sonoma complex fires destroyed some 5,200 homes in a matter of hours. An evening of unspeakable horror was followed by heartache and confusion. The community was reeling.
Everyone in this community knows people who lost their house. Everybody. Many of us know people who lost their lives.
You see things in the news about just total destruction, and you don't realize that one day that could be you.
But despite personal loss and dangerous conditions, there was mail to be delivered.
A few of the people who were burnt out showed up for work, and I'm like, what are you doing here? Nobody expected you to be here. You know, your house just burned down.
I don't know why I went to work, but I have a lot of elderly people on my route and some special needs people, and there was such a lack of communication. There was smoke everywhere. There was a lot of confusion on the streets. Half of me wanted to like run away from this problem, and the other half wanted to make sure that some of those people were going to be okay.
You know, people were asking me, why are you here? Why are you here? I said, well, where else am I going to be? I can't be home because I don't have a home. So, yeah, so I just ended up, you know, just showing up at work and trying to be doing my normal thing.
The fires continued to burn in Santa Rosa for well over a week, yet letter carriers did their best to process forwarded mail and to deliver to the scattered customers who remained.
The sun was red. You could look directly at it. It didn't burn your eyes because of the smog and the smoke. Ash, chunks of ash were just falling all over. The trucks were completely covered in ash. So everything was ash, everything was still smoldering, everything, you couldn't barely see 2 blocks ahead of you because the air quality was so poor.
It was just one of the worst working conditions that we had had, even having to go through the trauma of all the, you know, everything that was going on around us.
But it was very, very scary, and it was scary, and it was sad. It was very emotional to come into, and especially with everything still burning and smoldering. It was sad. These are these people's lives, and just to see it in rubble, it was really sad and hard.
The first responders, you know, the firefighters, police officers, the EMTs, you know, once they're gone, we're the second responders. We're there and showing people, hey, we are back, we're back, and we're gonna make this right.
Julie Combs has served on the Santa Rosa City Council for the last 6 years. Along with other community leaders, she has the difficult job of helping to get the city back on its feet.
I only have good things to say about the support of our letter carriers. When they themselves were experiencing, you know, the fog of disaster, and yet we saw letter carriers just step up and provide high-quality service. We didn't know which way the winds were going to change, and yet they were still out doing the job. I couldn't say more positive things about them.
And for the fourth time in less than 2 months, letter carriers from all over the country stepped up to help their NALC brothers and sisters.
California, Hawaii, all across the country, they reached out to us, sent us uniforms. We had a fire relief fund. They donated money to help our people get back on their feet. And the outpouring was amazing.
For that, we thank everyone. You know, it's been overwhelming and to see their face when you hand them a check, and it's just like there's so much negative going on in their life that this is one of their bright spots. You know, they're very happy.
Really talks about strength in union, and you know, it's more than filing grievances. It's about, you know, you're a member of the union. You're a member of a family.
Santa Rosa faces a long recovery. Most people here know that it will be years before their neighborhoods are fully rebuilt. But despite this daunting task, people remain hopeful. The spirit of moving forward is strong.
My daughter Margaret still lives in town, and she did a little decorating, as you can see, for the holiday season. Kind of lightened the mood a little bit here. Christmas is still going to happen, despite what happened here in Coffee Park.
I look more at the future than I do at my past. You know, in anything in life, you know, we sometimes we have things that happen to us, and hopefully with life experiences, they make us a better person. And if someone ever goes through something like this, I'll be ready to help them out too.
The Sonoma complex wildfires were the worst in the history of the state of California and the costliest in U.S. history. 44 people lost their lives. Nearly 200 more were injured. The estimated financial toll, $9.4 billion. But the people here are determined to rebuild their community.
So there's a lot of sharing and giving. It's been amazing to watch unfold. You know, we live in a beautiful city, and it was just pretty much ripped apart that night. But the people are what's bringing it back together.